Okay, ladies, I did a similar video about what a husband is and is not. Now it's your turn. What a wife is and is not. Uh, Again, many women want to be wives, but they're not wife material. They've not been taught how to be a wife more often than not. They've not seen it modeled. And oftentimes, you won't see it modeled. Why? Because every marriage is different. Everyone comes to the marriage table with different experiences, different histories, and backgrounds. So every marriage is going to be different. But what you can do is take pointers from those marriages that you saw modeled. And if you saw some good ones modeled, great, because you've got a wealth of good tips to start out with. But you still have to tweak that thing to what works for y'all. So first of all, I'm going to start out with being honest. The wife is honest and she's not a liar. So when you're in that early stage and he asks you how many children you have, and you only have one in the home with you, but you had two others when you were 14 and they living with grandmama, and you kind of keep it a family secret, you need to be honest with him, because truth be told, that's going to come out. Trust, when those kids get 18 or 21, 25, whatever age, at some point in life, that truth is going to come out. And the last thing you want is to have a man that you want to be so totally honest with you and build a life with you, supposedly honest, to find out that you've been living a lie and carrying a lie for years and years and years. Because again, that breaks the trust. That means he can't trust you. And it's hard for us to trust because of our life experiences, but it's hard for a man to trust, period. And then when you add his life experiences, it's that much harder. So keep that in mind, women. You don't want to be lying to him. If you say you're going to the beauty salon, go to the beauty salon. If you want to go shopping, as long as you're within budget, you guys are in agreement with the money being spent, and you don't know which store you're going to, well, tell him, honey, I'm going to, I've got this, this $50, and I'll probably be at Burlington and maybe Walmart and Home Depot. Because you don't know yet. Sometimes we don't know. We go into the mall and we think we're going to be at Macy's, but we wind up in Penny's. So the last thing you want is for him to call and feel like, okay, you said you were going to Macy's, which is on one side of the street, and you were actually over at Penny's. And that's a kind of a simplistic example, but that's the point I want you to get. You don't tell him you're going to mama's house and you wind up going to cousin Sally Sue's house. Because again, that comes across as lying, and then he has to wonder if he can trust you. So just be honest. If it's all on the up and up, what does it matter anyway? Being faithful. A wife is faithful. She's faithful to her husband. She's faithful to the marriage. She's faithful to the family. She's faithful to her commitments. She is faithful to all of that. And truth be told, once you get married, that should be your first and foremost priority. Your marriage and your household. Whether there are children in there or not, whether there are four-legged little guys and girls running around there or not, your first commitment should be to your spouse and your household. And again, if y'all, just like I said with the men, if you went into the relationship with the intent to be monogamous, then you do that. And that means all your exes need to be exes. If there are some that you maintain, and I don't think I said this on the men's video, but bottom line, if there are some relationships that you maintain, and sometimes we do, oftentimes that there are people that we've dated in life, and we kind of keep in touch with once a year for Christmas. Everyone sends out the text that say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Father's Day, those kinds of things. Make sure your husband knows who these people are. And I didn't say this for the men, but it's the same thing. Make sure you give him full disclosure about who these folk are. And anybody else who step into you, and if you're considering stepping out on your relationship, again, that is a choice. So if there's some need of your husband's that's not being met, you have a duty to your commitment, to your spouse, and to yourself to wait out whatever your need is until you can get with your husband and say, honey, look, I'm not getting the emotional connection that I need. We were doing great, and somehow in this last 2 or 3 months, it's gotten off, and so I want us to reconnect, da da da, whatever. And what does that do? That keeps you from going to get that emotional need met somewhere else, or even if it's sex, or if it's money, whatever it is. You agreed to be married, and so marriage is not always hunky-dory. Everything is not going to be great, but what you don't get to do is go look for what you're missing somewhere else outside the marriage. No, you bide your time without it. And if you're a prayer, you're praying for it, and then you're taking the actions necessary to get it corrected. If it means your spouse has to do some things different, or if you have to do some things different, because it's not always the spouse. Sometimes it is you. You've got to do some things different so that you can get those needs met in the home. Number 3, a wife is loving and patient. That means, and we naturally are nurturers, but because society has done such a great job in trying to destroy our families and to put us in discord and breakdown, we women have had to play the role of mama and daddy, of man and wife, of him and her, so to speak, in the household for so long. And what we've got to remember is when we decided to let this man into our lives, when we decided, and this is more specifically for those who marry, a little later after they've had children, or maybe in a second marriage, or whatever the case may be, or relationship. You've got to realize that as a woman, soften up, submit. And that doesn't mean whatever he says you do. He say jump, you say how high. But that means you've got to humble yourself down, and you've got to give him his rightful position, his rightful role. Feed his ego. Let him be the king of the house. You can't always be the queen. You are his queen, yes. And, truth be told, men, they don't want to acknowledge this, but yeah, we run the house. We're women, it is what it is. We tend to kind of keep up with the household. It's my house, it's my house, it's my house. But bottom line, it's his house, and we know that. We just need to make sure he knows that. But no, a wife is not abusive or controlling either. You don't control where he goes. Again, if y'all are honest and faithful, you've been transparent with each other, there is no need to control him. There is no need to go checking his phones all the time, tracking where he's going. He say he's going to work, and you calling the job at 6:54 because he should have been there by 6:50, and he's not there. And where are you? No, that's unacceptable. If you have to do that, then y'all might need to revisit the relationship and get to some counseling quick. But give him his space to be, and to be a man, and to be a husband, and then also to see if he's still following through with the commitments he made. As long as you're controlling him, you won't know what he's going to do outside of your control. A wife is definitely not abusive, and again, that's a whole separate subject and topic that I will address separately. But just to highlight really quickly, no, you don't talk down to your man. You're not gonna call him, especially if you get mad at him, you sorry ass nigga, just because maybe you make more money than he does, or he happens to have lost his job. And oftentimes, a man being a real man or real husband being unable to cover the household on his own does a whole lot to his ego, to his mind, than we women are even willing to admit. And that is definitely not your time to dog him out about it, because you have to keep in mind, he is fighting a battle when he walks out that door. The fact that he's black male, and I'm just targeting toward the black family, but this would also apply to any male. The way the economy is, how hard it is to find jobs, the way these bosses are treating people and don't want to pay them or want to work them like slaves almost. Women, we need to keep that in mind. This is what our men are going through when they're out there. And so to dog him out because, he's lost a job and it's taken him a month longer to find a new one in the meantime, that is not your role. That's your time to be building him up, to be highlighting those qualities that he does have, to pump him up and keep pumping him up and keep him pumped up so that he does not fall into a slump of depression, so that he does not fall into the thought that he's no longer the king because he's not rolling in the money or whatever the case may be. And that segues into being a wife is a builder and a creator, not a destroyer. Like I was just saying, you're building him up. You're creating, helping him to create new pathways in his brain of how to work around the situations that y'all are dealing with right now. Because we, at heart, are creative. We women, we know how to be creative. Men don't. So that would be your time, as I use the example with him having lost his job, to help him create the new path. Find, those qualities that you liked in him when you married him and the ones you found out about after y'all got married. Tap into those qualities. Or, hey, baby, I know it's hard for you to find this job, but you really like swinging those hammers. So what about doing contract work? We can get a website set up. We can, get you listed on Craigslist or Angie's List or something like that. And I can help take calls for you. And you can do your own. I got you, baby. It's okay. We might have to eat beans for, a couple months or peanut butter and jelly, but it's going to be okay. You create that, help him create that, and you build him up on that. Don't tear him down. It is not your duty as a wife to destroy your husband. Number 5, she's the owner of her stuff. And we know oftentimes women carry so many bags. And oftentimes we don't have a place to unload those bags. So they get carried on and on and on. Own that. Be honest with that. It's a really good idea to go somewhere, if it means have a psychologist or therapist or whatever it is, and start unloading those bags. And that's a separate video I'm going to do, because I personally think everyone should have a therapist in their Rolodex somewhere, at least 2. But own your stuff. If you were raped in the past, that's going to come up in your future life. And truth be told, you will never get over it. You will learn to live with it. You will learn to cope with it. With the right help and resources, you'll get to a point where it does not negatively impact your life, but it will have an impact. Excuse me. On that. So when, he comes to you and he wants to have sex, and you're afraid for whatever reason, or, you've been triggered or something reminded you of your rape, and you don't want to. Honey, I've been triggered. For whatever reason, Uncle John and what happened with Uncle John is in my head and I can't get it out. So I'm not at a point where I can emotionally release to you. And if women, if we can't emotionally release, the physical release is not there either. So be honest. Just be honest with your husband. Don't put it off on him and say, oh, it's your fault that, you didn't come home Friday night until 1 o'clock in the morning, and so that's why I don't want to sleep with you. No, that's not the issue, and we both know that. Y'all both know that's not the issue. The issue is that you've been triggered with what Uncle Johnny did to you. That's where you are, and that's your real reason. Because once we start getting to the real reasons of what we're dealing with, we can deal with the issues, and then we can be on one accord, and we can have happier, stronger, healthier relationships. I mean, for real, if you marry the man, be honest with the man. Be transparent in all areas. She's accountable. She's not a denier of responsibility for her stuff. Same thing with the guys. Women, when you do stuff, own it. Own it. If you went to that store and you bought $5,000 worth of clothes out of Macy's, knowing you ain't had no business doing it. Don't sit there and twist and tell the husband, he didn't make enough money this month, so that's why the lights are getting cut off. But you sitting there trying to pay the Visa bill. Okay, sorry fam. I ran out of space. Actually, I had a lot of videos to move and had not done them yet. But yeah, I was finishing up. Wives, you're responsible for being accountable for your stuff. A wife is also a defender and protector. Just like he has to defend and protect you, you have to defend and protect him, the relationship, the integrity of your relationship. And so that means when your mama come at him about some crazy stuff, check your mama. That means when somebody else, anybody else, you know, we can get with our girlfriends, and our girlfriends are quick to tell us, oh girl, no, that man can't do me, and can't no man do me this way. No, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm not going to tolerate that. You know your man. You know what he's dealing with. It ain't your girlfriend's business. It ain't your mama's business. As long as he's not mistreating you, he has his reasons for doing what he's doing, and you're okay with his reasons, then you stand for him. Don't let them dog him out while you sitting there. And if you're mad at him about something, because he didn't come home till 2 o'clock Friday night, you deal with him on it. It is not their place to dog him out, and it ain't your place to help them dog him out. And then number 8, a wife is unified or she's working toward it. Now again, it takes some years, some time to get unified. Even if you've been living in common law phase for a year, 5 years, once y'all do that church ceremony, for whatever reason, people seem to feel it's something a little bit different. Well, guess what? You still have to work toward that unified state. And so therefore, that should be your goal. It shouldn't be every time you get mad, you running home to mama, you running to girlfriends, you on the phone gossiping, etc., discussing to other folk your business. You deal with your husband on it. Or if you have to go to someone who's been married happily for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Or go to a marriage counselor, someone who has authority, who has knowledge and wisdom in that area. Not someone who doesn't like your husband, or someone who doesn't like you married to him, or someone who still remembers when, he stayed out late, or he blew some money and took y'all through a rough patch unnecessarily, because they're still holding that against him. So you're definitely not opening your marriage or yourself to other people. When you married him, when you said yes, whether it's common law and y'all acted in that capacity, or whether you stood in a church with a long dress and train and all that other good stuff, you said I do to him, not to the group. So he became your family, and the rest of them became your relatives. And that includes mama. That includes all your grown children. That includes your cousins. That includes your best friend. That includes your exes. That includes all of them. Your pastors, your teachers. They ain't got no business in your marriage. They do not have a seat at the table of your marriage. And so wives, it's important. I know women, we tend to gossip, but it's really, really critical, because again, if they don't like your husband for whatever reason, if they got issue with something he did in the past, if they want you with somebody else, they are not going to give you advice that helps to build your marriage. They are going to give you advice that's going to help tear down your marriage or your relationship. And then they're going to tell you that, but they're doing it, and they're sitting back and they're waiting and they're watching. And again, I tell you, not just from what somebody I read in a book somewhere, I'm telling you from experience. I've seen it firsthand in other relationships. I've experienced it in my own relationship. This is what occurs. So keep people out your business. That gossiping has got to go. You shouldn't be gossiping anyway, but you on the phone with your girlfriend, yeah, y'all chit-chatting. And that's not to say it's not okay to say, okay, he's mad at me, I'm not sure how to reach him, what should I do? You can ask that, but you want to be restricted in how much you tell about why he's mad and specifics and that sort of thing. It's not her business that he's mad at you because, you won't give him a blowjob. It's just, you could say to her, I don't think I'm meeting his sexual needs. And open the door for her to give you some pointers, and you take those pointers which apply and those which don't, you leave them. She doesn't need to know the specifics of, you're not doing it right, or not long enough or short enough, whatever the case may be. Be vague enough so that she doesn't know the specifics of your business, but you can still get the information. And then again, if you're going to someone who has experience in this area, if you trust them enough to go to them, then you should be able to trust them enough to give them enough details to where you won't feel embarrassed, and you're going to take that information and you're going to put it to good use. So that's my spiel on the wife. And look for the video that comes that talks about if you get to a point that you feel like you guys are still not going to work out. So hopefully this has been beneficial to someone, or will be beneficial to someone. Again, I've seen relationships destroyed. I've had my own relationship interfered with. And so it's time out for all of that. It is way time out for all of that. We've got to start getting back to each other. So that being the case, take it for what it's worth. Comments below are appreciated. And questions, stick them down there and I'll respond as I can. Thanks, and use it and have a great relationship. Okay, doke.